We are at the Gill Tract Farm, which is in Albany, just north of Berkeley and just south of Richmond.
And how are you involved with Gill Tract Farm?
I'm a volunteer here and one of the folks that was involved with the direct action in 2012 that helped open up the gates for the community to be here.
Oh, wow. Okay. So it used to be closed.
Yeah, well, I mean, this land belongs to UC Berkeley and has been designated for research, which historically community has not been very involved in. But because it was actually endangered of being paved for shopping and housing, the community organized a lot of different ways to fight back and protect the land. But one of those was the occupation in 2012.
Oh, wow. Were you part of the occupation?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So I guess it achieved its goals to some extent?
Yeah, in a lot of ways. Some of the development did happen and is happening, but there is an 1.5 acres that's being cultivated for community food, and a lot of cool things happening here in the what's called a riparian corridor or creek habitat.
Right. Mm-hmm. And so I've heard that there is another development on the table.
Yeah, we were really worried about that at first. Worried that the big housing complex that you see right there, it was going to be disrupting the monarchs. But actually, we were lucky to work with the leading monarch expert for our region, Stu Weiss, and he let us know that it wasn't going to cause a problem. In fact, it might even buffer the wind in some ways, which is one of the things that is hard for monarchs. So we embraced it and are happy that there's going to be more student housing available for students, and cautiously optimistic that this consultant was correct and that the monarchs will still have a good habitat here.
Great. And so tell me a little bit more about the monarchs. So how do the monarchs use this land?
Sure. So the western monarchs have been on decline in the recent decades. Their numbers have decreased by about 99%. And this is an area where they overwinter, and then there's also a year-round population. So there's two different populations that use this place for food and for shelter during their winter migration. And that wintering population is actually really important for the overall monarch numbers because they're some of the healthiest and fittest that are because they're able to do that migration. So protecting places where they can rest during their migration is really important. That's what we are.
This site really came into focus in 2020, which was the worst year ever for monarchs in California. Instead of hundreds of thousands of monarchs showing up across the state, only 2,000 were seen at the overwintering sites. And it turned out that this site had a relatively high proportion of the few monarchs that were in the East Bay. So there's a series of sites up and down the East Bay, including Albany Hill, down San Leandro Golf Course, down to Ardenwood, up to Point Knoll. This site actually had the most monarchs out of all of those sites. So it really came into focus as an important overwintering site. The places the monarchs really like have a lot of wind shelter. They don't like the wind. If the wind at ground level is like 5 miles per hour or more, they generally will not be clustering near there, right there. But they also need light. So you need holes in the canopy that let the light in, but you don't want holes in the canopy that let the wind in. It turned out that it was basically like right here was where we had the best wind shelter from all directions, but it was still getting a fair amount of light coming in through the trees there.
Right.
So then suddenly it's like, oh, okay, now I understand the site. I understand why this site works. The most important thing for the overwintering is the forest canopy structure.
Right.
We got some big eucalyptus over there by the Sprouts Market that are providing really critical wind shelter from the southeast toward the strongest storm winds. we had a big open field over here, and now there's a 6-story building there, and that helps block the wind. That was one of the results of our study. We ran some wind simulations, and were able to show that would create more wind shelter than there was previously
Right.
with a big open field.
You came up with recommendations about how to restore the area, and I'd love to know more about what actions you're taking, what you recommended.
So the vulnerability was this big open north exposure. So we seal it up with trees. Cypress do really well here. They grow really big. So we planted, I think it's about 21 cypress to create a new shelter belt that's going to seal off this north edge. And then plug up some holes through here and create better wind shelter. That's the primary site enhancement.
Right.
And then working on the understory. So getting rid of invasive plants. We have a lot of invasive plants here, specifically Himalayan blackberry, Italian thistle, hemlock. So removing those and then planting things that will benefit the monarchs, whether that be trees or nectaring plants. We have some Ceanothus, which is a nectaring plant, which is native to California and is absolutely beautiful. I mean, I'm sure you've seen it around. It has those big purple flowers on it. Great nectaring plant. And also toyon. We have some really great toyons. Those also flower once a year. And that one, they were particularly put over there for the riparian zone. So the creek area. So it's a bit more different than over here where we want to have a windbreak. And over there we want to kind of provide nectaring plants and other places for them to hang out during the day.
One of the things about the monarchs is they're so opportunistic. And the whole monarch overwintering phenomenon in California is kind of a totally artificial distribution, because we planted all these eucalyptus and pines and cypress trees up and down the coast as windbreaks, and misguided lumber. It's terrible wood. The ukes are terrible. And the monarchs just kind of found them and said, hey, this is a really nice place to be. I'm going to stay here rather than go to the pine forests on the Monterey Peninsula, for example.
Yeah, that's so interesting. So we're not really returning to a pre-human context or whatever. We're just kind of, we have monarchs because of stuff we already did. So.
Yeah, right. So let's work with that.
Yeah.
The way I put it, the monarch and eucalyptus connection, that makes some people's heads explode. It's like, oh, it's a non-native species, it must be bad, but then the monarchs have adopted it.
Right.
So, my philosophy there is the monarchs made their choice. We have to work with it and honor it.
Yeah.
We're so intertwined with the land now, and it's kind of our role to step in and help when possible. And that takes a lot of teamwork. So there's a lot of wonderful people and a lot of wonderful organizations that are involved in this work. And also, Gill Tract is a really special place because it is a community farm. And so this space is not only for the nature, but it's also for people. So utilizing this space for community events and gatherings is really important. And it's hard to do when there's big prickly vines everywhere. But yeah, it's something that's kind of very much ongoing. What we see on the ground is mulch is a big part of that. So sheet mulching, and then volunteers. We get a lot of really great, wonderful people volunteering, spending time out in the sun, holding things by hand.
I found out about the farm through one of my classes at school and came out here to volunteer and really enjoyed the energy and the people here, and really enjoyed getting my hands dirty to do something that really matters. And so I really believe that preserving ecology and biodiversity is really important work, and so that's why I want to spend my time volunteering here.
Yeah, I'm here as a volunteer.
Got it.
I'm here as a volunteer, and I'm here because this place, I've learned so much from this place. It's given me so much. And I think that this whole space is a complex study in what a landscape can look like when we allow something non-institutional and interstitial and radical, as in to the root, to happen. The original meaning of radical, and yeah, so there's a lot of beautiful things that have been able to happen here because the community said that this is for the people.
Another really incredibly important piece of the puzzle is to look to Indigenous leadership for solutions. So the Sogorea Te Land Trust is an incredible and very unique organization that is really leading the way in how to repair.
I've learned a lot about what it takes to bring people together under a common goal. And so when the monarchs came in 2020 and the population statewide had collapsed to only 2,000 individuals, and about 5% of the monarch population in the entire state came through this little farm, we mobilized as a community so quickly, and it's just captured people's imagination and captured their hearts that we might be able to actually do something to benefit these beings that are, I think they're a bellwether of our time. They're a bellwether of the ecological devastation and degradation, but also the possibility of regeneration and of care and stewardship.
We can get the monarchs back if we change course now.
Well, we've got to do a lot of things.
Right.
Human beings we've got a lot to do and a lot to make up for. We've got generations of humans not considering other creatures and designing like urban design that does not consider those creatures. So we do have to consider in the way that we use resources, in the ways that we design our homes and how much we drive, how much air pollution is happening, because all of these things add up, and then we see creatures like the monarch that are very delicate, small, do a lot in their short little lifespans. Like they can't hack it with all that pollution and all that habitat loss. So we've got a lot to do, but they're still here. We still have a chance.
So just get started now.
Yeah.